Good morning, or well, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it may be, whenever you're watching this video. It's one of the great things of an online component. People can watch the videos when they get a chance. Guys, my name is Doug Darbro. I'm been at Shawnee State University for a long time. I think I'm a little bit over 23 years here. I teach statistics. In fact, I've taught statistics at Shawnee State over 100 times. In fact, some of you probably had me in class if you took maybe Math 1500, and of course we call that Stat 1150 now. But anyway, Dr. Raber approached me. I'm going to say about 2 or 3 months ago, and asked if I would be interested in bringing I guess, a statistics component to her class. And I jumped at the opportunity. Not only do I just seem to jump at any opportunity to teach statistics, but don't tell the folks over in the occupational therapy department. But I really like them, and I like working with them. We've worked on some things before. Dr. Raber and I worked on a research study maybe a couple years ago, and Dr. Skurlock, I met her actually when I was on her doctoral advisory committee, and I was her statistical consultant when she was working on her PhD. So let's get into kind of the purpose and the goals. The goals, I guess, for this component are threefold. First of all, I want you to start thinking a little bit about anticipated outcomes for research. Secondly, obviously I'm going to bring a statistics component to this. So how do we use statistics to examine your goals? And then I want to try to teach you some things about statistics from a non-mathematics perspective. Now, this will break down into two parts: descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. When we talk about descriptive statistics in the field of statistics, what we're saying is we're just analyzing the sample data that we've collected. Now, guys, the overarching goal of a statistical study is to make a statement about a larger population. Now, I think the best way to summarize the study that Dr. Raber and I worked on together a couple years ago is we wanted to examine to see if there was a model that would predict fall status for elderly patients. And I forget the sample size. I'll share this data set with you in some of the illustrations. But we had a sample, I think, of about it seems like it was about 150, and so that was our sample. But ultimately, what we wanted to be able to do is to take information from these 150 patients and generalize to all patients of that age group. So so again, let me back up a little bit. What we do is we have a larger population that we want to investigate, and because that population under investigation is too large to analyze the data for every single subject, we take a smaller subset called a sample, and we analyze the sample and use the sample to generalize and make a statement about the larger population. Well, descriptive statistics focuses solely on our sample. The inferential statistics part focuses on generalizing from our sample to the larger population. So inferential statistics, embedded in that is inference. So we use a sample to make an inference about a larger population. Now, research-driven goals, occupational therapy research. And now let me back up a little bit. Guys, I am not an occupational therapy researcher. Well, I guess I am a little bit because I did some research a couple of years ago in occupational therapy, but I'm probably more of an education researcher. But I looked it up, and occupational therapy research agenda is organized into 6 categories. And theory, building, pedagogy, instructional method, and those things listed there, although presented here as specific to occupational therapy, I think that could clearly be generalized to any sort of medical research or even education research. The American Occupational Therapy Association AOTA list as one of its 5 strategic goals and objectives for 2014 and 2017 is linking education research and practice. And they list the 3 bulleted items as ways that they seek to address those goals and achieve those objectives. Great thing about putting this in video and not being in class is if I go too fast, you just hit pause and you can stop me, and if you get distracted, you can stop me, come back later, and take up where you ended off. So guys, the steps in research, and this is just more kind of a general approach to research, is you come up with an area or a topic that's of interest to you or interest to the researcher. You narrow it down to specific research questions. The third thing you do is you design your experiment, kind of go through the data collection plan. And you think about, is your study quantitative or is it qualitative? So many people get the cart in front of the horse here, and they say, well, I want to do some quantitative analysis, so they'll work backwards to set up their research questions, just so their data is quantitative. And again, that's getting the cart in front of the horse. What you should do is design your experiment and decide what you want to know and what variables, what data can be collected, and then decide what's the best way to address the research questions. Is it through quantitative analysis? Is it through qualitative? An example of qualitative, when I was at the University of Kentucky, my PhD's from the University of Kentucky, there was a lady there that wanted to study, essentially she wanted to kind of tap into what it was like to be an African American law student back in the 60s and 70s. Well, her study couldn't be quantitative because she could only locate 2. So she did a really, really nice qualitative study where she visited with these 2 law students for 2 or 3 days, took notes, recorded, and actually did a summative assessment qualitatively on what they told her about that experience. So there's a lot of good qualitative research out there. You won't find any from me because I'm a quantitative researcher, but there's a lot of good qualitative studies. The 4th phase is to collect your data, analyze your data. That's really where I come in. That's going to be the focus mostly of this component that I intend to teach you. And 5, you state your summary. Now, within your summary, you not only address your specific research questions, but you talk about your limitations of your study. You look at areas for future research. In other words, how could your research focus be spun into maybe future research questions? So, guys, how are we going to analyze our data? Again, we're looking at the quantitative part here because if Dr. Raber was looking for a qualitative approach, then she's got the wrong person. But how will we analyze our data? Well, 2 of the most commonly reported statistical procedures, and falling under the inference category, the inference heading, is ANOVA and logistic regression. And students all the time come to me and they're like, whether I'm on their doctoral committee or whether I'm on their master's thesis committee, or maybe I'm just working with someone on a publication, and they're like, well, you know what, I don't like statistical software. I just don't like it. I don't understand it. It drives me insane. It's complicated. I don't want to use it. And I'm like, well, okay, then if we're going to run an ANOVA, then we'll calculate the sum of squares by hand. So we're going to do all sorts of internal summations, and we're going to square stuff. And you can see the denominator. We're doing internal sums of sample sizes. And then once we get to our logistic regression, we can do some partial derivatives of likelihood functions, and get into, I see some transpose of, looks like probably a column vector. So, all kinds of cool stuff that we can do by hand if you don't want to use technology. All right, maybe technology isn't so bad, right? So, guys, for this illustration, I'm going to use R. Now, R can be complicated because it uses code, but we're going to keep it simple. And the beautiful thing about code is once you see it, you write it down in your notes. As long as you can replicate that, then you can replicate the statistical procedure. And guys, we're not going to get into anything crazy in this class. But so we'll try to keep the code as simple as possible. R, secretary once, she said, Doug, you're using that new statistical software called R, right? And she's like, how do you spell that? And I was like, well, it's just R. So guys, the easiest way to get to download R is just to Google R without the quotation. If that doesn't work, then I've given the website. Guys, this is, I guess our provost approached me about 5 or 6 years ago. At that time, we had SPSS, and SPSS license was about about $2,000, maybe $2,500 at that time. And we get a bill from SPSS, which if in an ideal world, that's what I would use to teach this class to you. But we got a bill for SPSS for the next year, and I think it was like $22,000. So Dr. Todd, who was the provost at the time, called me in his office and said, Doug, do we really need this? Is there another way that we can get around renewing our license to R? Well, I found renewing our license to SPSS. So I found R. It's free, and over the years, it's become widely accepted. It's for a while, the internal code hadn't been validated, and government research wasn't permitted using R, but today it is. So it's a solid way to analyze data. And I mean, let's just cut to the chase. It's free. Okay, so what I'm going to expect by the time you watch the next video, I'm going to expect that you have R downloaded on your computer, and we'll take off from there. Now, one thing to keep in mind during the installation process, you're going to be expected to choose a crayon mirror. So capital C, capital R, capital A, capital N, mirror. Choose the California, UCLA. And again, depending on the version that you try to download, it could be a California UCLA, or it could just be California 1, California 2. So choose one of those. And it's not going to make any difference in terms of the calculations, which one you choose. So guys, this video was a little longer than I expected it to be. So I'll tell you, I look forward to working with you. I'm going to watch a few videos, and then I think next week, your Tuesday and Thursday class, I think I'm actually going to come in and teach you some more things. So guys, by the time you press play on the next video, let's have R downloaded to your laptop. Take care.